Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samuel64, and welcome to the RoboCast. After many, many months, we are finally back. I'm joined alongside...
And as 9132, the Rules Guru.
And Steve, the AmericanKilljoy.
Gentlemen, it's so good to hear your voices again. It's been far too long.
Yeah, let me stroke my beard for how long it's been. It's insane.
We in fairness, we have had several things happen between last time. I mean, the last time we did an episode, it was the Bugglebots final.
Yeah.
Yes.
In between then, I moved house. Me and Anderson went to an event. Steve, you had an event as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to, what was it? Was that back when I went to Battle Beach? Was it that long ago?
Yeah, it was like January.
Yeah, wow. Holy crap. Yeah.
And obviously other things that we can't talk about, otherwise we get taken off of YouTube happened as well. So, the world's kind of a strange place right now. And as a result, there is no BattleBots Season 5 yet on Discovery, which is big sad. But in this, unprecedented time, we must do what many other sports around the world have done and look to the past. And we're looking at a specific episode from around 2000. Robot Wars, the first World Championship, which first came to our... Well, it didn't come to our screens. It came to VHS tape. Do you remember them?
Yes.
In 2000. I had this video. I think my mum got it from W.H. Smith's back in the day. I don't know about you guys. When did you guys first see this episode of Robot Wars?
I got it on VHS myself. It was a surprise for me. I remember it was one of those things I used to get pocket money. But instead of giving me pocket money this 1 week, they instead gave me this VHS tape. And of course, little 6-year-old Anderson's head blew up at this point. Because obviously this was just before, literally, I'll tell you when I got it actually. I got it just before Heat P of Series 3 was released. So, of course, it was very much I've got this great VHS tape, and Heat P's uploaded. Oh, God.
I have the Robot Wars wiki in front of me. Apparently, it originally was released between Heat M and O. So you actually got it not long after it came out.
Yes, yeah. I the reason why I know that is because I remember looking on the back of the box and seeing Diotor and saying, "Hey, that's the robot that I just saw in last week's episode." That's why I remember it.
And Steve, obviously a big American, might have been a bit difficult to watch it that early on, but
Right, yeah. So I lived up north, and our local PBS, public broadcasting station, WHYY in Philadelphia, they broadcasted both episodes of Series 2 and Series 3 when it started releasing. We got it a little later, obviously, because they had to get the licensing or whatever that entails. But I actually never saw this first World Championship until it was uploaded to YouTube. I might have missed the episode. It's very possible. I mean, the amount of times we probably missed episodes with taping them, that happened all the time, I'm sure. But I remember a lot of the robots from this episode because I did see the international special. So that was the
International League.
The International League, the one. The one that was like a football league kind of setup, and it was odd.
Yeah, amazing that they in 20 years' time they'd actually base 2 entire series off of that format.
How about that? Wow,
how strange, huh?
So I didn't see it until YouTube, but there's a lot of interesting robots in here from both going on to future and I guess a lot of teams that we'd go on to know more about in the future, especially in other series that Robot Wars would split off into. When we got to the new arena after this set was scrapped, and then they started kind of evolving it for Series 4 and 5, and then from there, obviously, there's teams that obviously went on to do a lot better than what they did here, but we'll get to that.
We absolutely will. I suppose at this point we should probably just crack on with things, really. Obviously, so back in the day, it was very different. You had, obviously the old arena. It is, you look at it now, you just kind of think, oh my God, this looks so unsafe. like, oh my God, it just gives me anxiety looking at it. But, for the time, I suppose there wasn't much in the way of particularly dangerous machines. I mean, there was. We'll get to one later. Which
aside from the one,
yes, we'll get to that later. But
maybe I guess you could argue as well. But,
yeah. Anyway, we'll crack on anyway with the first fight of the first World Championship, which is between Diotor and Depoppesaurus Rex. We'll start with Diotor. Obviously, looks incredible. It's just like this is just something that's straight out of like classic Robot Wars. Obviously, very famous competitors for many reasons, but it just screams classic Robot Wars 2, doesn't it? There's just so much going on. It's wonderful.
It's glorious. It does, because it's like, for example, you would never see a spring-powered lifter anymore. At least not in a heavyweight, anyway. You would never see a robot cover itself in fur anymore. You would never see... I mean, yeah, Boggle Eyes, I guess you would see these days. I mean, but it is very classic looking.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole way it looks, it's very... I don't know how to describe it. Like, I always want to say camp. like the whole show in general, like it is. I don't know how to describe it, but like that's the only way I can think of putting it. It's just so wonderful to look at. It's got a massive shit-eating grin on the front of it. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it.
It's definitely a robot that was made at a time when it was considered more of a spectacle than a sport.
Yes, at this point it's very much a TV show, isn't it?
Pure entertainment before combat, well,
which is great.
You could ask certain teams that question and get different answers, but
yeah. Obviously, this team was entered the first 2 series of Robot Wars with Nemesis and brought Diotior across for Series 3. I can only imagine this World Championship was filmed after the Third Wars, because obviously we know the problems that Diotior had in the Third Wars. For those that don't know,
import problems.
Yeah, so obviously the team representing the Republic of Ireland. So they had to catch a ferry from Dublin over to the UK.
Yeah.
And the customs, because obviously, to be fair, I can understand completely why, because, you look at all the wires and electrical components and you think, that's a bomb. So the component, they have to strip the whole machine apart, bring it to the studios, and then reassemble it all in record time. And, amazingly, they managed to do it in time, probably with a little bit of, jiggery-pokery for the producers. But it's obviously a lot more complete here, and it just looks very smooth, and the weapon's working, and that kind of thing. So
another way you can tell as well is that they started running out of fur.
Yes, I was about to say this. There's a running theme in this episode, which we will get to. But the longer the episode goes on, the less fur Diotior has. till the last fight, where there's practically nothing left. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So it's reasonable to assume that this was toward the end of Series 3. If they're running out of couch fur.
Yes. What do you guys think of Diotior as a competitive entry? I mean, there's certainly worse out there. It's not the worst machine in the field, which is
definitely.
Yeah.
I think, like we said, I mean, the fact that it was able to get it back and up and running and make a heat final against two. I mean, Steel Avenger and Sting at the time, they weren't terrible robots for Series 3. So for Series 3 standards, it's a very solid robot indeed. And yeah, I don't like it when people turn around and say, "Oh, it's just a joke robot," and it's just because it's not just a joke robot. It's a serious. It's a fun machine, but it is still serious and has proven itself.
I think what stands out for Nemesis is not Nemesis and Diotior. It was the fact that they just had a habit of not breaking down. And I think this era of robot combat, it was all very much trying things out, seeing what worked. Because it was so reliable.
You had a lot of people building their own electronics.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone did.
Off-the-shelf parts. It's a testament to build quality that anything could run for as long as it did in the series.
Yeah, and Diotior definitely had a habit of just not breaking down, and I think that served it very well when things around it just didn't work. Its opponent in this fight, Depoppesaurus Rex, for a first attempt from Belgium. I think it was the first attempt from Belgium. I'm sure someone out there can correct me if I'm wrong.
Pretty certain.
It's a solid machine.
Yeah, it's really competent.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, it's got quite a nice low front, actuated front. A bit sluggish. Everything uses wheelchair motors in this era, so it's probably not going to be the fastest anyway. It looks the part. It has. The shape is. Roll over, so if it can get flipped, it can generally most times roll back on its wheels. It's a solid machine, again, not going to set the world alight, but a good, base level entry, into Robot
It's a
Wars.
country mile long. I mean, that's something.
It's nearly 2 meters long. It is nearly 2 meters long. It's huge.
And fair play to the team as well, because it was their first ever build. And instead of building something generic and obvious, they built something that looked interesting.
Yeah. Obviously, the team actually did come back later on with another robot, Philippa 2, which had a lot more success. than Depoppesaurus. But for the time, again, it had 2 fights in its career. I think Depoppesaurus, and it lasted to 5 minutes in one fight, and then the other fight, I think it carried on working. I think it got flipped over. If I remember correctly.
Comment warriors, you can do it.
Yeah, comments. Let us know. This fight was, Diotior was fairly dominant throughout. I mean, there was a little scare towards the end of a Diotior with getting close to the, trying to get Depoppesaurus in the pit, and they just started getting picked up, and you're like, oh damn, are they gonna get flipped over? And it was really close. And I think, had they got them over, the decision would have gone the other way.
Definitely. And their arse caught. Don't forget that. That's very important.
So, Sergeant Bash and Diotior, an eternal love affair. A romance better than Twilight, for sure.
But to be fair, again, for a fight between essentially a robot that is considered a joke machine and a first ever attempt from Belgium, or potentially first ever attempt from Belgium, very nail-biting finish.
Yeah, considering, at this point, this is Diotor's now 3rd series, and, they've had 3 years of building experience, and this is pretty much, I think, Depoppesaurus Rex's first outing. You've got to give them credit, the fact that they lasted 5 minutes in a fight with, a veteran of the series, they did well, and I think, they deserve a pat on the back for that. It went in Diotor's favour in the end, I think, purely because when they did flip Depoppesaurus Rex over, it did go over, but it could have easily gone the other way.
Easily.
Definitely, yeah. And fair play to them as well for managing to use their lift at just the right time to stop Diotior from pushing him in the pit.
Yeah.
I think the Depoppesaurus did the power to then do anything with it once it had it in the air.
Yeah, they couldn't drive forward, could they?
They just couldn't drive forward at all. If they could drive forwards, they would have had that fight, in my opinion, because there's no way Diotior wasn't going over, and I'm pretty certain this version couldn't self-right, hence why it lost to Firestorm. So, which is a shame. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's pretty cool in the fact that Diotior went through, because everyone loves a bit of Diotior, but it would have been nice to see a robot that wasn't so close to the UK going through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think credit to them for that. So Diotior go through the second fight. Weld-Dor and Prometheus.
Can you call it a fight?
Yeah, well.
So we'll start with Prometheus.
Yeah.
So a US machine.
Yeah.
Not particularly...
An original Robot Wars US machine. Like, this thing's been around for long. This is 2000. This thing is ancient at this point.
Yeah, so...
Kind of shows.
Yeah. So considering, this, I think this was probably filmed 99-ish. I think is, Yeah. So, but, this robot's probably at this point, considering Robot Wars in the US would have finished in 96, 97. It's a good.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good 2 or 3 years old.
In 94 as well, so if it was around from then, it would have been quite a long.
Yeah, it's at least 2 or 3 years old at this point, and very fast. The petrol engine inside it. Yeah. Clearly still working very well until it didn't.
It had big long barrel wheels, which was an interesting design choice. Had really interesting choice.
I mean, it certainly had the grunt. It made a great noise as it was zipping around the arena as well. It was, lovely to listen to. It's just a shame that it didn't really get a chance against Weld-Dor, with those lifting forks, very well driven in the end by Philip Lundy. And, they
didn't have to do much. It got stuck in forward drive.
Yeah.
You say that, but I've actually heard that it couldn't reverse. It had no reverse gear. I don't know if that's true or not, but I have heard that Prometheus had no reverse gear.
Yeah, well.
Which is a bit of a design flaw if that is the case.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure, to be honest. But yeah, you're right. I think literally in the first impact, they got stuck in forward drive, didn't it? Because as soon as they separated, it just went flying.
Yeah.
I mean, they did do a bit of a Jesus Christ and, walk across the pit of oblivion. I have no idea how on earth it didn't fall in. To be fair, it is a big robot, Prometheus. Could would it have fit in the pit? I mean, it's a big boy.
Depending on angle, probably, but only just. See, the thing is, it suffers from classic robot syndrome in that it's very big. But if you look at it in the international league, you see the inside. There's nothing in there.
Yeah, it's a lot of frame, and that's about it. There's nothing else going on. Which, it's it's definitely a robot of its time.
It looks very space age, like early space age. Like look how sleek and smooth the sides are.
Yes, and the pointless LED light as well. You have to.
Pointless. Get out of here.
It looks like a sort of like spaceship from a 1950s sci-fi film almost because of that LED strip on the front.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Weld-Dor these days, of course, owned by our good friend Anthony Murney. He's got that machine up in Northern Ireland. A decent machine. Again, not a world beater in this series, but like there are worse machines out there. And if I remember correctly, back to its heat in Series 3, it had a horrible heat because every robot in that heat was really good. It was King Buxton, 101, Centurion, Excalibur.
It's interesting that they threw it in the same heat as Centurion, due to how similar they look.
Yeah.
The way I look at that heat is that every single robot in it, may I ask, was a potential heat finalist. And quite a few of them I think could have been semi-finalists as well. So
I think Weld-Dor has to be included in that. I mean,
definitely. With the forks, not so much the axe, but the forks were a very good weapon.
Yeah, they were very low to the ground, and obviously we got to see a bit more of their effectiveness later on. But in this fight, they picking up Prometheus, they dragging them around, or maybe it was Prometheus driving with that insanely powerful engine, relative to Weld-Dor, was driving it around. But Weld-Dor was always in control of this fight, and I think well driven, did a good job, and I think in the end deserved winners when Prometheus just kind of conked out, really.
Although fair play to Prometheus, they did manage to cause damage to the top of Shunt.
They did. The whole kind of fiberglass top just kind of fell off, didn't it, really?
Yeah.
Anything more to add to this fight? I mean, it was pretty short and sweet, wasn't it?
It was short, sweet, and a good dominant display.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a little crazy all over the place, but that's what we love, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Fight 3 was between All Talk from Scotland and Razer from England. We'll go with All Talk first because there's probably a little bit less to talk about. Because with respect to the All Talk team, Razer have a lot of pedigree.
What a terrible draw for a cool robot! Like I love All Talk. I love its speed, man. It's
so fast.
Yeah, in this era where you had robots like we were just talking about, where it was wheelchair motors, they're just going to putter around. This thing is on a whole nother level, and facing anything other than the deadly bird of the predator, basically of the original run of the show.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a shame because I really like this design. It's sleek, it's competent, it's got a lot going for it, and just
it looks cool as well. It's got that really nice plow and spikes at the front.
It was one of its day because it had changeable weaponry, and it was an invertible 4-wheel drive machine that had a lot of good pushing power.
Yep, and the problem was, and unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. Unfortunately, it was the perfect shape for Razer to get a hold of. I do, obviously, we know classic Robot Wars is mired with producer interference, that sort of thing. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that Razer was ever going to struggle with a lot of the competitors in this championship, but I do wonder, given that Razer did have a relatively poor performance in Series 3, whether the producers were like, okay, we want to show Razer off here. This is the most probably the best looking machine in the entire field, let's be honest here. Do we want to see them dominating this again, a solid mid-tier machine in All Talk? Maybe, and it's the perfect shape for it. Razer could just clamp down on it all day long, and that's what they did. Yeah, absolutely. And Razer was in complete control of this fight. It was wonderful to watch.
I will say this about All Talk: I wish they decorated it this way for the actual competition as well, because I love the big Scottish flag on the top of it. I think that looks beautiful.
It's really cool, isn't it? It's really cool, and obviously in the main series it was just grey, and it was not bland, but like it was missing something. And like when I watched this episode before I watched its heat in Series 3, so I was kind of like, "Where's the Scottish flag?" when I was watching it. But it was an incredible display of dominance from Razer. I think they did mention at the start, it's got some stainless steel armor on it, and Razer just said absolutely not to that, didn't they? It just went straight through it.
I mean, it seemed to take me a little bit at first. It put a few little tiny holes in, and then thought, "Sod this," and just went straight for it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say something that shocked you gentlemen now, because you know me for quite a long time, both of you. I'm actually slowly warming back up to Razer again, because I rewatched a lot of its fights recently. And whilst I'm not going to go out my way and say that they're like the most amazing things ever, because most of them aren't, I actually do quite enjoy this fight. I'm not going to lie. It's one of my more favourite Razer dominant fights, because All Talk at least gave it a go.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like some robots where it just went underneath it. Oh, that's it. Bye. Lol.
Yeah.
Three noms and it's over. It tried.
Yeah.
All Talk was fighting back. Absolutely. I think that's a testament to the way it was the way it was driving. You know what I mean? Like it's with its drive power. Like I feel like a lot of robots that Razer gets, it just pulls its wheels off the ground, and you're like, all right, that's it. It's gonna just carry it around and have its fun. But this one, it really. There's a lot of times where Razer is like crushing on All Torque, and it's almost fully off the ground. Razer.
Yeah, there's that iconic shot of them both going upwards in the air. And it was a cracking fight in general. Like, you know, the credit to All Talk for, you know, keeping going and trying to, you know, at least make a fight of it. I think they probably knew they were a bit outmatched, but again, credit to them. They kept it going.
Got full on Braveheart because of it.
Yep. And even if Hamish got set fire too, it's a shame. But
it didn't cut apart. Oh, it's so beautiful. Bless it. Quite fun, man.
Oh dear, yeah, and a great fight as well for both teams. So Razer going through alongside Weld-Dor and Diotior. Our fourth fight, it's very generous.
We almost had the whole ladder on the left side lose.
Yeah,
not quite.
not quite. Thank you very much. The fourth fight was between Mortis of England and Terra Australis. I feel really bad for Terra Australis.
Yeah.
The guys, you know, they've come from Australia with this machine, you know, and clearly it's just not having a good time. And they you know, Jonathan does mention to the fact that the clutch broke 3 days before they arrived. But, you know, we've just discussed the problems that Diotior had. It's not you know, it's just going to be the same with, you know, Australians and jet lag and whatever else, and it's a shame.
It is a shame. The thing with Terra Australis as well is that it's technically the only official Australian robot to enter Robot Wars, because the Bondi Titch was actually a loner bot. It was just some guy in Australia, some kid in Australia won a competition, and he came over to, you know, fight for Australia and did a terrible job, bless him. But he tried.
He did try. Poor Terra Australis.
Yeah.
I'll say this much about it. I like the look of it, but I don't think the weaponry's designed very well. One, the spinner barely sticks out of the robot.
Yeah.
So it's barely going to hit anything. And two, it's got ramming spikes that the thing runs at 3 miles an hour.
Yeah. On the back, so you'd have to be driving backwards, and all your controls are backwards. So lining up a shot with spikes is already difficult.
Yeah.
Although, fair play to the team, they were well up for it, bless them. They really were interested, and they looked so gutted, bless them, when it didn't work. I felt you look back now and you think, those poor sods, they did everything they could and they still couldn't get it going.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Mortis veterans from UK Wars 1 and 2, as they mentioned, and obviously Series 3. It's a shame we didn't really get to see much of it in this championship. We'll get to why a bit later on with their second fight. But, you know, the axe went straight through the front, which is something. And, you know, the lifter peeled. They got it in the gap with the saw. How do they do that? So Mortis won.
Yeah. Mortis always, with this fight, like I watch it back, and I noticed this when they're running the axe. It always seems like it's going like, huh, I'm gonna get you. Oh no, I
do wonder about that.
Goes through.
Yeah, so you look, so that was always a thing in Series 2 as well. Like, you look at the Series 1, and it just looks like it's just not giving a shit and just going straight through the armor like it's nothing. Series 2 and 3, it always confused me. Like it's like it's. Oh, I'm thinking about it. I wonder if that was a result of them breaking their weapon thing.
Maybe.
It seems to be more in control of it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think the lifter go was a lot more useful, particularly in the later series. With
it was a very good addition.
Yeah, and the fact that they managed to get it in weight as well is incredible. So credit to the team for that one. Yeah. And they beat Terra Australis. And if you thought that was A short fight. Oh boy. The next fight is between Behemoth of England and Technolease. Behemoth, veterans from Series 2, which doesn't look anything like the Series 2 version.
No, it looks good.
It did. Well, this was not a fight. This is Behemoth just absolutely no pink.
It's more of a fight than the last one because they came into contact. It counts.
It's true.
This was Techno leaves much to be desired. It was just terrible. it was like a series 1 or 2 fight where you're like, it's flipped over, that's done. Like this very much made me think of like Series 2 GBH versus Talos, where like they just flipped it over and like that was it, done, cool.
Well, thanks for coming.
I mean, I have to respect the ruthlessness of Behemoth in this fight. Just like absolutely no mercy. Like, should we flip him about a bit? No, let's just fleave him. It's just...
It was the same as its Series 3 run. Shark attack on its side in 3 seconds.
Yeah,
general carnage upside down in 3 seconds.
I think
upside down in 3 seconds.
they clearly wanted to win. I think that was it.
They just weren't caring. They were just, let's throw you around, let's get you over and done with. Technolease tried to right themselves with their little saw arm as well. They tried to stop themselves from being flipped over with it.
It was. I mean, it wasn't going to happen, was it? Obviously, Technolease. This is pre-razering, I think, so that's at least something for them.
Yeah. I'm pretty certain it was, because there's no way in hell that thing they managed to fix that.
No, that was not going to buff out, was it? Let's be honest. Yeah.
No. I'm kind of glad that
they made the first ever Dutch Robot Wars champion slice.
Yeah. I was just about to say.
Yeah, it's amazing that, I mean, it kind of shows that experience does pay off, because obviously they obviously had a bit of a head start over a lot of the Dutch teams. I'm sure your own could tell us a lot more. Yes. But like these guys obviously been to Robot Wars and they're like, okay, so maybe we shouldn't send in a shiny chrome box with a saw, and obviously they ended up winning, didn't they? So it paid off.
It was over so quick. I mean, this was starting to be... When I watched this the first time, I'm like, all right, cool. So our average of fight time is like, I don't know, like 30 seconds now, because it's dropped down.
Yeah. I did like the first line of commentary from Jonathan Pearson. It's just like, and their robot is shiny. It's just... Thanks. Cheers for that, JP.
They said it though, didn't they? Fair, they did. They were like, literally, they just... And they just say... And we made it very shiny because beauty kills the beast. No, it doesn't, boys. And there's your proof.
I mean, page that. Ask Trident that. No.
Yeah, we all know that house robots don't like shiny robots. We all know it's true.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was quite surprised that we didn't. I mean, so far we haven't really seen much house robot involvement. Like a robot died, and Cease has been immediately called afterwards. Have you noticed?
Do you know what? The only thing we've seen in terms of house robot action is at the end of the Depoppesaurus Rex versus Diotior fight. Dead Metal just books it across the arena for no reason. I have no idea why.
And Bash sets Diotor's arse on fire.
Yeah, other than that was pretty much it. Next fight is a cracker, in my opinion.
Yeah. This is so set up to be good.
And, it's between Panic Attack, the Welsh entry, obviously Series 2 champions, and 101, Mike Franklin's rebuilt machine from RoboDoc, and, kind of refined robot, I'd say.
Yeah, both very refined actually from the Series 2 versions.
Yeah, absolutely. It does hurt me watching Panic Attack go in the pit, because this version of Panic Attack was probably, as much as the Series 2 version won, I think it's very fair to say that Panic Attack in Series 2 was not the best robot.
No. No, it was like a cassette tape on wheels. Much if you plug Panic Attack into Griffin Series 2, you probably could hear something.
Yeah, pretty much. If you look at Panic Attack, like in Series 2, it's a decent machine, but it's well driven. I think that's the key as to why they won. In Series 3, like it's a serious contender now. Like it's got those incredible lifting force. Like it just Kim's so good at driving it, he can just control the fight how he likes it. And I just thought that was going to be another case here with fighting 101. He just turns 101 over. 101 stuck against the wall because it can't get... I think the aerial or the antenna is just stuck underneath it and it can't get out. And, I just think, Panic Attack's just going to pick it up and shove it down the pit. And what happens is quite amazing, is Panic Attack picks it up, 101 spins its tracks, kind of like, not too dissimilar to how Killy Cranky killed Razer in Series 8. Kind of picks up, spins the track, and it drags Panic Attack into the pit. I like everyone, Jonathan saying Panic Attack drove down the pit. I think 101 won that fight completely because the track was on the floor. I think it pulled it in.
Mm-hmm. You can see the one track. I just watched it back. Yeah, you can see the one track on the floor roll both two robots around and just dump Panic Attack down the pit.
Which is
what
such a
he was
shame.
trying to do. This is his tactic. This is his the pit's open. Here, let me sumo lift my robot up, the other robot up, and just drop it in the hole.
Panic Attack is just. I think the one that always sticks out to me is Ramstein, when he just picks up Ramstein and the War of Independence and just gently nudges it down the pit. It's so beautiful, beautifully done. I think it's Axor as well in the Mayhem Extreme.
I'm quite Series 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for me, I think this is what he's trying to do. It just 101 somehow gets a track on the floor and pulls Panic Attack down the pit.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you two is...
I'm not ready for a quiz, Sam. I wasn't ready. I didn't study.
How do you think Panic Attack would have done had it successfully beaten 101?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right. Semi-final.
I'm
I think I'd say that too. I think I don't mean to back off your to jump off your thing, what you like saying semifinal, but I do agree that it probably is.
It would beat Weld-Dor and lose to Razer.
Yeah, I think we never got to see Panic Attack fight Razer, which is I think a travesty in my two great machines.
That's one of the many fantasy fights everyone wanted to see, isn't it?
Yeah, too great to the sport, two champions, of course. But yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think Weld-Dor would have struggled. I think Panic Attack would have just turned it over and won the fight, really. But I think it would have been very interesting to see how Razer and Panic Attack would have dealt with each other, because Panic Attack's so low with those spikes, and Kim is such a good driver. That could have gone either way. That would have been spectacular to see, I'm sure.
Little bit of a race to the floor where like it's all going to kind of depend on who gets under who first. Because I feel like if with the way the Panic Attack's forks were designed, I feel like it could have hooked into a lot of Razer's underbelly, because I know we've seen Razer's underbelly enough times to know it. With the way that the Panic Attack's forks are designed, it's possible it could have hooked onto Razer and maybe just ended it there. It's that's the thing. There's too much unknown. I think
it's a shame that we never got to see it happen. That's for sure.
I know, it's too much hypothetical.
Take nothing away from 101 in this fight. I think for me, 101 absolutely won the fight on merit.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but sadly, it did take away what could have been a spectacular, tournament path for Panic Attack. But no credit to 101, they won the fight and they went through to the quarter-finals.
Mm-hmm.
Our next fight is a special one, in my opinion. Chaos 2 from England and Killerhurtz from the Czech Republic, apparently.
Yeah, they misspelled Oxford. Hell of a
I
did like how Jonathan Pierce did say the strenuous links to the Czech Republic for
It's very confusing because I had seen Killerhurtz before this. You see it I saw it on BattleBots 1 before I'd seen this episode. So I'm like, all right, well, they call them Brits in BattleBots, but they call them Czechs here. So help.
And I didn't notice this until only a few years ago. They have the antennas on the back of Killerhurtz have the big Czech flags on it. It's great.
Yeah.
Just driving it around the arena. It was a very good fight, and you can tell George throughout is terrified of that axe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
With good reason. I think Killerhurtz at this point is probably the best axe spot in the entire competition.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. And it showed when Killerhurtz got the chance, it went straight through Chaos 2's flipper like it was nothing. It was both robots so quick as well. Killerhurtz, upwards of 15, 16 miles an hour, and Chaos 2 upwards of that as well. Mm-hmm. Such a good fight between these two, and this could have gone either way. And, Chaos 2 could probably consider themselves very, very lucky that they didn't end up losing this fight. At the time, they probably would have been massive favourites going in because, as we said, we kind of think this is filmed after Series 3. So Chaos 2's just come off winning the championship, Killerhurtz went out in round 1.
I know. It's what could have been with Killerhurtz. It's insane. Had he not driven down the pit?
I know.
What could have been?
Yeah. And, this fight is cracking. It's just good driving from both of them. Chaos 2's trying to get a run up. trying to get around the back, can't do it because Killerhurtz has the car style steering at the front as well, so it can just cut the angles off wherever it wants to.
And sort of sandwich it against Shunt in the end, which is great tactics on George's part.
Yeah.
What I do, I mean, I like this fight because it's probably, you know me, I like fast-paced, action-packed fights, and not to discredit any of the other fights so far, but they've all been relatively slow-paced compared to this one. This was the first. Oh, hello, the robots have woken up. Although it did take Killerhurtz about 10 minutes to get off the bloody starting gate, but we'll gloss over that. What were they doing there?
I did like how Chaos 2 just like didn't even bother like attempting to touch them at the start. Like, do you want to move? And then they just like, oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah. It's not like there was interference problems. Well, I mean, there might have been, but the front wheels were moving, so something was getting there.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Very odd.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, Chaos very lucky to go through, especially considering Shunt actually managed to. It must have obviously do a lot of damage, but it must have taken something out of this canister because some CO2 came flying out of the back.
Yeah, some kind of valve or something was probably hit. I don't know exactly what. I'm sure it'd be great to hear if one day if George would decide to let us know what happened in that fight. I'm sure it'd be very interesting to hear about it.
Well, George, on a first name basis, I was his gym instructor for many years.
You were a gym instructor? Come on.
Yeah. Poker, of course.
Right. Okay. I understand. Killerhurtz probably thought they had the fight won at this point. The gas fly at the back of Chaos 2, and they're probably like, oh, well, that's job done then. Flipper's dead. Just keep hitting it. And then Chaos 2 somehow snuck away. Shunt stuck its axe into Killerhurtz itself, which probably did a load of damage to Killerhurtz in all fairness. And then over she goes.
Yeah.
I think it did because the reason why Killerhurtz couldn't self-right, if I'm right in thinking, was that the something in it broke, which meant that the axe couldn't retract.
Yeah, because Killerhurtz in Series 4 could self-right.
It could, yes.
And I'm fairly sure this one probably could have done as well.
Yeah, if it's the same if it was the same one that was over here in BattleBots and competed over here, or at least similar, it had the capability that axe is the way I see it, and I've seen it work. It has that piston out the front that's supposed to like push it back and retract it. It should have been able to do it. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, speaking of Killerhurtz and BattleBots and self-righting, its fight against Hexadecimator. Let's be honest now, it's one of the best shots ever caught on film.
Awesome.
When it self-rights, as it lands on its wheels, its axe comes down and hits the...
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And the axe flies off. That was against Mauler, wasn't it? Was it against Mauler?
Well, yeah, the axe going against Mauler and just, went
That's
flying
another great
off.
shot.
Yeah.
Another great shot.
Yeah. It's a shame, again, it's a shame that these two end up getting drew against each other in round one because, Killerhurtz could have had a cracking run in this competition, and it's a shame to see such a high. In my opinion, Anderson's not as big a fan of Killerhurtz as I am, but like,
I mean, yeah, you're a fan of this series. This is very well documented. Of
course I am. It could have gone. I think Killerhurtz had the potential to do very well in this competition as well.
I do like Killerhurtz. I just think that it's. For considering how often it didn't do well, it's a bit overhyped. But I do agree in this competition it would have done really well because let's be honest now, a lot of the competition.
To be fair, had it beaten Chaos 2, it would have had Razer, so that could have been pretty sticky.
But they actually had an anti-crusher device ready. They basically had these. They had massive polycarbonate panels that would have been too tall for Razer to get over.
I'm sure they would have found a way.
The front or around the back or something, but I'm just saying they did think ahead for Razer, and so everyone moaning about Tornado, they weren't the first to do it, boys.
Last round one fight didn't actually happen. It was meant to.
I don't know what you call it.
It was meant to be between Cerberus from Cyprus. Obviously, the team are based in the UK, but they are of Cypriot descent, so I suppose it kind of makes sense. And Cerberus is a Greek mythological dog, so again. Cool. I'm down with that. Against Mauler, the BattleBots competitor Mauler, which it's a shame we didn't get to see it fight. However, having that thing in a Series 3 Robot Wars arena, I'm pretty sure would have been a hell no. I know Hypnodisc fought, and like you're comparing apples with oranges. Hypnodisc was the first spinner of any note really in the UK that got a chance to fight. The Mauler had a lot of experience, and I think its weapon was heavier and span faster.
I also think it was very much a control issue as well.
Yeah, because Hypnodisc had the ability to slow the disc down. I don't think Mauler did.
Yeah, Mauler has to drive it into something to slow down.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah,
it's got so much inertia. I remember that from its fight against Nightmare in season 1 of I'm turning into a Brit. Season 1 of BattleBots. It actually had to drive into the spike strip to slow down at any quickly. So that's a problem. And by the way, Robot Wars, what the heck was that test area?
Oh man!
It's like mesh metal. What is that?
The testing zone. We've just taken it out of the car park, lads. That's what we've done here.
I will say this about it as well, because it's a shame, because literally a series later they had the arena safe enough because of the MTV pilot. One thing I will say as well is a shame is because I don't know about you guys, but I honestly think Mauler would have won this if they had been allowed to compete.
Oh yeah,
I think so too.
Because Razer would have been able to do fuck all to it. So.
Well, they might have struggled maybe against something like a Behemoth or something. I don't know, but we'll never know.
I can see it tearing Behemoth scoop off, but that's just me.
Yeah. Assuming Mauler got through, it would have fought Diotior, and that would have been weird. So,
we'll see. It's one of those what if moments. I personally think it's a shame that they flew the Mauler and shipped the Mauler over to the UK just to say, "Nah, sorry lads, you're not fighting."
That's awful.
Yeah, all that taxpayer money. Yeah. Thanks, BBC. Never mind. We'll move on. We'll move on before we get into a political debate. We don't want to do that here. That's not what we're about. The quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So Cerberus beating the Mauler by default, going through to fight Diotior. 2 heat finalists from Series 3, and 2 very contrasting styles. I want to talk a little bit about Cerberus and just the way that it looks first, though. What an absolutely gorgeous robot this is! Like for the time, and like, even now, I think it looks great. But for the time, it's got shiny metallic covering. Whether it's paint, I don't know, but it still looks fantastic. The head and the spikes and the tail, it's a wonderful looking thing.
It's pure aesthetics and also a little bit of function. But it's one of the prettier looking designs, definitely out of Series 3. And I guess later on, and I know. Anderson, you talked about this in your video, where Cerberus kind of, as series went on, I mean, it showed its age, but I mean, for this series, I mean, this is one of those robots where like you started to see like the evolution of like, oh, we could really make robots look pretty and not just like silver boxes, and we can have weird shapes and organic looking machines. Like it was a true testament of design, and it's just a beautiful looking robot. That's all there is to it.
It's 8 weeks to build this. I mean, considering some boxes took 4 months, I think that's pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament that these two fought each other. You have the super stylish Cerberus against the ridiculous fur covered Diotior.
2 very good personality filled robots for the time.
Absolutely. And they actually put on a pretty decent fight. I mean, Diotior, again, kind of controlled the fight throughout. It was just, gently, you can see it was building up to the big flip that was going to turn him over eventually. And
more roll really in a flip. But...
Yeah, but, they still managed to do it, didn't they? And
it wasn't full-blown yeet, but it was more like a yeet. So.
This is also one of the very, very few times that Jonathan Pierce actually objected to the house robots coming out and attacking a robot. I think the only other time was Beefcake. Because he was like, no, someone should stop this. I'm like, what are you on about, Jamie?
I mean, to be fair, it does hurt me a little bit seeing Cerberus get torn up by that, because it was just such a beautiful machine. But you enter the arena, you know what's coming, and unfortunately for Cerberus, it was a lot of punishment from Killerhurtz in particular, and.
Gave him a good smack on the tail.
I did like Diotor's bald patch at the back, and Jonathan Pierce having to clarify that he wasn't on about I think there's a balding member of the Cerberus team in this that's in camera shot at the time, and he's mentioned the fur covering balding at the back, and he's like, oh sorry, that's Diotor balding at the back. It's like, yep, smooth Jonathan. Yeah. It's a good fight, and again, Cerberus is another example of those that it's very zippy around the arena. It certainly shifts a bit, and it's just a bit of energy. And it was a very good fight, very good fight.
Yeah, and it's one of those. There's a lot of moments in this fight that are memorable. Like there's the one part where Sergeant Bash is actually going in on the upside down Cerberus and also has its turret 180 degrees to also get Diotior.
And Diotor's just like absolutely engulfed at this point. Like it's all over for them. Bless them.
Victory in flame.
Bless. Oh, God bless Diotor. Just catching fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Diotor.
And that's Diotor. Diotor through to the semi-finals of the World Championship. My God.
What is that? That's a very. I think even Peter Redmond would say, like, even now, like, that's an of the time moment. Like, wow. That machine.
I mean, they can only beat the opponents that are in front of them, and that's what they did. Sure. You know, at the end of the day, Cerberus, you know, fortunate as it may have been in Series 3, were a Heat finalist, and the fact that they managed to, you know, beat another Heat finalist shows really Diotor wasn't a bad machine.
Not at all.
And we got to hear Craig actually speak some Irish.
he does love to drop it.
Which is something that's very, very interesting about Craig Giles. I never knew that until very recently, actually, that he's half Irish.
Oh.
He's a bright guy, man.
Absolutely. So, the next fight, an all-English affair between probably the two most iconic machines from classic Robot Wars, other than maybe Hypnodisc as well in there. Mm-hmm. Chaos 2 and Razer. Two absolute icons. I think is it fair to say, you know, they've got 3 championships between them. In the main competition, they've won absolutely shed loads of fights. Mm-hmm. I mean, what a pair. You know, this is their only one-on-one meeting ever in, you know.
I was quite surprised they put them against each other this early. Mm. Like, if you're a producer of the powers to be, I wouldn't have done it. But then again, I mean, a lot of people argue that this tournament was sort of made for Razer to win, but the way I look at it is, if that was the case, why would they put it against the then reigning champion this early? I mean, I know we're pretty certain this was filmed, you know, post Series 3.
Yes.
So obviously they would have known that Chaos 2 was the champion at this point. Why would they put it against it that early? That's my argument.
It is
just
strange.
To show how dominant Razer is.
Yeah, but again,
who can beat the best?
Well, who else would you put it against? I mean, you know, the only alternative really is probably Mortis or Behemoth, but we'll get to that a bit later. In terms of the fight, Chaos 2 starting pretty strongly, getting the flip up, obviously repairing the whatever problems they had with Shunt in the last fight with the CO2 canister, and then Razer just decides, no.
Yeah, it's game over.
Not for I think another thing as well is, I think Chaos 2 is trying to get Razer out of the arena there, because I think he realizes, George, that that's probably the only way he's going to win this fight.
Yeah.
Which didn't quite happen. It was close, but yeah. So, and then Razer just comes in and that was going to town on Chaos 2. Then it was
It's a great visual.
Yeah,
great visual. I mean, even I, you know, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Razer. I'm not the biggest fan of its fights, but even I have to admit that just seeing the CO2 pouring out of it as it gets bitten into, such a beautiful shot.
This is probably the fight where you got to look back and think, you know, it's so frustrating that Razer had so many teething problems in the UK series, because what could they have done? And I think probably at the time the team looked back at this as well, and you know, Chaos 2 won the series back to back. You know, there's no, you know, and Razer, you know, struggled to get out of its heat for the first 3 series.
I mean, the thing is, I'm kind of glad it did have those teething issues, because being realistic here now, if it didn't, it probably would have won Series 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And let's be fair, now that would have gotten very teamy, very quick.
It would have done. It would have done. You know, and I think, you know, it does make it more special when they do win it later on. You know, probably even for the team as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, because it's the sort of thing. It's a bit like Tombstone, isn't it? It's like it's the favourite, but it winning it's now an underdog, despite the fact that it's one of the favourites to do really well.
Yep.
Seeing Razer finally win a heat, everyone was like, "It's going to break down in a minute." Oh, it's actually made out the heat. Oh well, no matter, it'll break down in the next fight. What's that? It's won the series. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where was this 3 series ago, you idiot?
Yeah. You don't just, like, the first 3 series you entered never make it out of your heat and then make 2 straight finals.
Yeah, I know, right? Iconic.
And also this started the trend of Chaos 2 just falling down the pit in specials. It just
in World Championships as well, no less.
Being competent in the main series and then just falling down the pit any other time.
And with it driving itself in and all as well. It was
this time backwards, the other time forwards.
How to say it? You know, credit to George Francis again here, because like the fact that he was going at full speed and just nails it perfectly, just a full straight down down. Like you didn't have to even like slow it down or anything. It's just like, oh, it's
like
gone.
a billiard ball in a pocket. It was just like, ba-dum.
Yeah, unbelievable. This is probably one of my favorite fights of the whole special, to be honest with you. Like Ray, this is a showcase of what Razer can do against you know, we said, you know, maybe All Talk was a bit of a gimme, the fact that it's a robot that suits it. This is not a gimme.
No.
This is not a gimme.
That's what I was like. And it's a bit, I mean, I will admit, it's a bit harsh at what point where you see basically, you know, Dead Metal and Razer tag teaming it, you know.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a shame.
As a wise man once said, some of us are gentlemen.
But it wasn't dead. It wasn't dead, so it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Where was the agreement?
It has to be said, it was also quite surreal for me watching Chaos 2 get battered so early on. It's not quite, it's never quite, sunk in. Just this is the first loss it took, and it really did get a pasting from Razer.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. I'm actually just checking the Robot Wars wiki. Apparently, Vinny Blood said that they'd just been crowned UK champion, so it was filmed after Series 3. So there you go. So it probably just shows how impressive that fight was for Razer.
Definitely. I mean, and it's another. It had to be nagging at them. You're like, man, we can beat the best robot here, but we can't get out of our heat. What is going on?
Yeah.
No problem. A big blue pyramid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do love me some Pussycat, though. I will say.
Oh yeah, I'd love to cover that at some point. We'll get to that a bit later on. Our next fight in the quarterfinals is between two Robot Wars veterans, Mortis and Behemoth. Mortis is starting faster. Obviously, it's very Behemoth is a very sluggish machine. It's got a lot of torque and good pushing power, but it's very slow. Mortis is very zippy. Mortis coming in with that axe, and it actually did do some damage to Behemoth. It was a good chunk, and a good it gets embedded in there, and Behemoth then just picks it up and drags it to the pit. And the JP does bring a notion to it, to the bracing that it used the hammer initially to kind of steady itself, and then it's like, oh my god, that is so like chill, and just like the whole team, Rob, Ben, and Arthur just look so calm throughout the whole thing.
But this is again another showing of Behemoth just not giving a fuck. It's just like,
they just wanted this Series 1, didn't they? They wanted just to win a trophy at this point, I think.
Never forget, Behemoth won a trophy, yet Rick and Ming 3 did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mortis, of course.
Yeah, Mortis did, yeah.
There was a crack, short but sweet fight. Mortis clearly demonstrated that the self-fighting arm did work. Obviously, we didn't get to see that in Series 3 when it fought Gravedigger, because I don't know if there was a problem with it, or it just wasn't working in the fight against Gravedigger, but it was self-fighting as Behemoth nudged it into the pit.
Yeah.
So
I think because they had microphones in the booth for that one, and you can actually hear Arthur Chilcott say, "Oh, that's it, we're out," before they've even been pushed in the pit.
Yeah.
And I think you can hear like Rob mumble something before, so I'm guessing he turned around and said the lift is not working or something.
Yeah.
Everything was going wrong for them in that fight.
Yeah, it really did. It's a shame, because what could have been with Mortis in Series 3, I think it could have had a very good series, but
yeah,
and
I don't know.
Even in this competition as well, again, another robot that I would have liked to have seen fight Razer is Mortis. I think could have done quite well. Would have been interesting to see.
Even if it fought Razer and then Razer, well, who knows if it would have crushed through Mortis? I think it would have, though. But
it was Kevlar, and Kevlar is stab proof, right? That's what stab proof vests are made out of.
That's the thing. It's like it would have been interesting, but I think he still would have. I think they still would have flashed to Rob Knight and his constant masticating and just not caring, even if there's holes driven in his robot or dents.
Just like absolutely blank face, like they obviously
it's on fire.
Oh, yeah, that's it. We're done, boys.
They definitely played the part of the boo boys very well, didn't they? They played it very well.
As well. This is very tactical.
Yeah, as well. Behemoth absolutely nailing the driving in this fight.
Yeah,
definitely.
Scoop to just pinch them down, just to stop them from righting themselves. Fantastic,
Yeah, absolutely. The final quarterfinal match is between Weld-Dor and 101. A similar robot for 101 to deal with, considering its first fight with Panic Attack, and the forks getting in the tracks, and that. You have no idea. Like, looking at it, it just looks like the track's about to come off, and that genuinely could have happened. It could have just snapped off like it was nothing.
Yeah.
Obviously, it did a lot of damage to Weld-Dor's fork in the end. It didn't quite go to plan for. It was a bit too weedy to have 100 kilos or 80 odd kilos just chilling on the very, very tip of the fork, which is a shame for them.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we can't not mention the devastation of Weld-Dor's hammer. I mean, who? This is the axe of it.
The petal on the flower, I think, is how Jonathan Pierce put it. Do you know what? I will say credits to them for not falling in the pit. They made a habit of that series, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was good. That was. It was literally like this. I mean, how did 101 not get?
Yeah, what was Mike doing? What was he doing?
This is another fight that was almost over in less than 10 seconds. If he just drove story 8 a little more, and it would have been done.
Mike Franklin's still fairly active in the community today. I want to know what happened. Like, what was he doing? just shove him in.
We want answers.
I'm quite glad he didn't know, because it was actually quite a good fight.
It was good. There was a good back and forth. I think 101 throughout had the pushing power and the ability to win the fight. I think it was Weld-Dor, unless it got 101 in the pit, didn't really stand a chance. But it was a good back and forth, and the petal on the fucking hammer. It was great. Again, it was ineffective, but it was great fun, and it was a good fight between two very solid machines. And Weld-Dor is a unique robot in the fact that it fought both King Bee and 101 in the same series.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So how about that? There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
And it's nice to see that Amy didn't want to
sacrifice Super Bunny.
After all, it was a campy moment, and then he probably thought, nah.
Yeah, it's probably not wise.
This is children's television. You can't kill toys.
The fact that
how nonchalant she was about it. Yeah. So your friend is. What are you going to do to it? He's going to die. Going to get cut in half by their axe. I mean, what the hell?
Wonderful. It was just great.
No
change. Just it's going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd be fun to talk to. Like, what were you thinking in that moment?
Yeah, I do wonder if they look back at that and think, probably not my finest moment on national TV. I don't know.
This is a press release. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. The first semi-final. Poor Diotior looking absolutely trashed already before the fight's even begun. To be honest with you, there's not much fur.
The rest of the world's last hope.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because it's meant to have fur on it. It looks like it's got mange.
Yeah. It's got some serious disease, maybe I don't know, leprosy or something. I don't know, some disease anyway. And poor Diotior. I mean, Behemoth, and the pit's gone now. So that's one thing. And credit to the Behemoth team for making a great show of this fight and just rolling Diotior around like it was nothing, and it was cracking, and it was good entertainment and a decent fight. It wasn't a fight, but a decent fight.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is the thing, though. But the whole way through this, Behemoth were like, "I don't give a shit. You're out." And then all of a sudden, let's just roll them around a bit. Let's just have a bit of fun.
I think probably because they knew they had to fight one.
Yeah, growing confidence.
Oh, they did it against Technolease. Come on.
Well, you never know. You never know.
To be fair, they're fighting CV screwed them over in the Uni special. So hindsight is a blissful thing, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Diotior never really stood a chance. At this point, it beat. Met a class of machine that was above it. Behemoth at this stage probably wasn't the most competitive machine. It was very good, but it wasn't the most competitive. But it was just a level above what Diotior could offer.
And it shows back in the day where this is a Behemoth that it never really made anything happen outside the heat. Outside of Series 2, and it's another one of those robots where, given a better draw, and that's the worst thing to say, but given a better run through a series, had it actually gone through and been reliable and not died, who knows how much more pedigree it would have? How many more semifinals it would have made before say the reboot didn't happen? I think that really kind of links into their lineage now, where they made a grand final finally. That was a huge moment, especially after what had happened in Series 9.
Yes.
But so it's another one of those robots where you look back and say there's a lot of what if. So it was cool to see it really dominate everything it came across all the way to the final. You know, having not seen this until after I'd already seen Series 4. So it's definitely nice to see even early Behemoth be really competent and really show that it can throw anything around it, just given the chance to, you know.
It showed what it could have done.
Yeah,
you know, like had things been slightly differently, but you know, they gave a very good account of themselves in this competition, and I think, well, we'll get to the final a bit later on, which is a spectacular fight in itself. But yeah, they cruised through this competition, and you know, it showed just how good Behemoth, this version of Behemoth for the time, was as well. So I think that's incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
The other semi-final was an all-English affair between Razer and 101. Don't hurt me, Razer. I mean, Razer hurt 101 in this fight.
Yeah.
I will say, the fact that 101 went 5 minutes with Razer just going through the top, like it was nothing, for 5 minutes straight, and it still worked.
Nothing short of impressive.
It is incredible engineering. The fact that, you know, it went through, it got battery acid on it. It went through a battery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kept going. It's like the Black Knight Python. 'Tis but a scratch.
Genuinely, like 101 in this, like, you know, I remember back in the day when he did his Series 3 reviews, Mr. Psycho said it had a weaponized curse. I think its curse was just the fact that it didn't die. It's a zombie.
I mean, this is probably one of a bit of a weak fight, to be honest, throughout, just because it was so one-sided and nothing. I mean, as much as you can, don't get me wrong, credit to 101, it kept working, but it didn't really give Razer much of a fight.
Yeah. This is your stereotypical Razer fight, you know, where they kind of get in, get out, they crush, they get out. I wonder, that's the thing, where if you're 101, where do you run in an arena like this? Do you run toward the house robot like Mike Franklin did and just pray that somehow Dead Metal just decides to not pick on you and pick on Razer instead? Because it seems like what they were doing. It seems like they were constantly running toward the house robots to, like, they'll do something, because that little poking stick on the front of 101 was not going to do anything to Razer.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if you've seen, Steve, the rebuild that Mike's done of 10.1.
Yeah,
with the little axe, that was quite cool. I think, you know, maybe something like that, but again, you know, trying to factor in the technology at the time and weight limits and all that kind of stuff. One thing that is worth noting, obviously, just as in Series 3, the pit was covered up from round 2 onwards. It was also covered up in the semi-finals onwards. There's no pit for the last 2 fights. Do you reckon 101 could have done something had there been a pit available to them, or do you think it was just a case of...
I don't think they would have had enough purchase on the wedge.
No, not me. I think it depends if they could keep both tracks on the floor and have the drive power, but very difficult.
It's the shape of 101 that kind of lets it down here when fighting against something like Razer with a nice slope front at the front. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't the right fight for them. That's kind of sad for that design, because it's a really dogged and determined. Even though it was being pulled apart like a tin can, it still didn't die. So there's a lot of competent engineering there in design, but it just wasn't the right fight for it. And I think even if you played this fight a bunch of times in a row, like if they were given time to repair and try again, I just don't think, no matter what you do, it's not. I didn't see a way to winning for them. I think it was too much Razer, too much all the time. So
yeah, I think it didn't help as well that the fact that, much like All Talk, it's a flat surface for Razer to get a hold of. I think that didn't help it.
And that's the thing, where you can actually look back at Razer's fight against Agrobot. Angled side really benefits fighting against something like Razer, where you actually have something that'll actually graze off of, like, cause the weapon to graze off the side rather than punch straight through. So,
Yep, absolutely. Which moves us on to the world final, which is Razer and Behemoth, and what a fight! First of all, what a great fight!
Brilliant. This is one of the very few occasions where the final of a tournament was the best fight, in my opinion.
Yep. I think there's certainly a few in history which I think does live up to the billing.
I'm just saying it's one of the few.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely, like, for my 2 cents, you know, as much as the end of Series 3 was very cool, you know, the grand final did kind of let it down a little bit.
Yes.
Not so here. This is absolutely a phenomenal fight between 2 very good machines that got to prove their worth in this competition.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we start? I mean, Behemoth starting off so well.
So strong.
so strong that they got Razer over. They kept it pressed down. I'll give Razer credit for thinking outside the box and retracting the beak over so it would roll over because they knew Behemoth was pushing it so they could get back over. But it wasn't enough. Obviously, Behemoth came back and just turned them over again. Mm-hmm. It was just the first minute or so, a minute or two, maybe, I don't know. Behemoth had this fight absolutely, like, it was a perfect drive. It was so good. And it looked like it was all going their way. Obviously, Razer couldn't get over because Behemoth kept the pressure on throughout.
Yeah.
Where do you guys stand on Dead Metal freeing them from the flame pit?
Oh, I don't like it. Oh, I don't know, man. It's because constantly throughout this fight, you can see. I'm watching it back now, so I can actually have a fresh take of it. Because I've watched this a bunch of times in my lifetime. I've come back to this fight and watched it and say, Razer's wings. Well, the thing is, Robot Wars, it had a wood floor.
It did.
So every time they're trying to use their self-righting wings, you can see that the corners of these wings are digging a little bit into the floor, and it's just not letting it roll over the way it's supposed to, as if it would just glide and fall back over. I almost wondered if those wings were a little rounded on the edges, if that wouldn't have been such a problem. But yeah, it gets stuck on the flame pit, and that's curtains. Honestly, in my opinion.
So the thing was, for those that don't know and haven't seen the fight, go watch it. It's a cracker. So Razer is on its side and trying to use its self-righting arms to get back on its wheels. No problem. The problem is the tip, which makes contact to the floor, is snagged inside one of the tiny little grill holes of the flame pit. Mm-hmm. So it can't quite... the center of balance is just so where it will stay on its side, but it won't roll back over.
Yep.
And it's just so close, it just doesn't quite go over. So Dead Metal knocks it off the flame pit. Behemoth then puts it back on again. Because I don't know if Behemoth think at this point they can't self-right or they're stuck in the flame pit. Let's put them back on it and let's see if they break down. I am.
Here's the thing: the fight changes completely after that point.
Yeah,
100%, 180. It's entirely in the other robot's hands.
It's
a fight of halves. Definitely.
It really is. And, as much as you can say what you like about the incident itself, I personally am happy that Dead Metal knocked it off. I think it would have been extremely harsh because Razer in every other part of the arena would self-right. It's just on that specific bit it can't do it because of the flame.
You can make a BatterBots parallel where, like, if something gets stuck in the screws, should they get in and try to unhinge it? This is different.
With the screws, they try and spin the screws back. They at least try to get them out, right?
Right. Yeah, and this is the whole thing with Robot Wars being a TV show as opposed to a competition, where they're trying to make the best product possible, and they're not just going to let their one of the most iconic robots just die because of something that was
not their fault. It's not their fault.
Because of a grate that was chosen for the flame pit that just so happened to cause an issue for that particular robot.
See,
I don't know.
My look on it is the hazards are there to hinder a robot.
That's what I think. That's my opinion.
The flame pit is technically hindering Razer, which it was. It's doing its job. And as far as I'm concerned, that counts as an immobilization, and it should not have been freed.
Yeah,
personally, that's my 2 cents.
It is. I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments saying one way or the other, but I can understand exactly why the production team, decided let's send Dead Metal in there and clean Razer out and give them a chance at least.
Mm-hmm. I can understand why they did it. I just don't. Sorry, I just don't.
Yeah. It is. Let's be real here. This happened 20 years ago.
No, I know. Obviously, so much has changed since then.
Not. And my it is. After all.
Yeah, exactly. I will say, as you quite rightly say, after this point in the fight, Razer is just absolutely on it because I think they realize, okay, we're going to lose this, so let's go absolutely bananas, and they just outdrive Behemoth in every department. They're just circling them, but Behemoth can't keep up. It's just absolute demolition. And you see Behemoth is getting pulled apart slowly but surely. It's incredible. It is incredible driving from Razer.
It took one really major hole on one side and then it took like a smaller one on the other side.
But the other side, they crumpled the lifter arm.
They did.
They just pulled it off. It's just like it's not even there. It's amazing.
So they did damage to the scoop.
They didn't. No.
And of course, it led to one of the most controversial decisions of all time, didn't it? Let's be honest. Let's be real now. it's considered one of the most controversial.
It's a 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something at least. And at the end of the day, I think Behemoth did end up getting a trophy out of it as well. they got a runners-up trophy.
Why not?
Which is
That's
quite
hard
rare.
Come on, that's the fat kid at the school sports day award. That doesn't count. Come on.
I think
by that account, I was the best kid at my school sports day because I got tons of fucking runner-up awards. Being 100% honest, I just want to discuss the judge's decision quickly because I know what you think I'm going to say here. I know what you think I'm going to say. Now, I was actually discussing this from the ESC earlier. Go watch that podcast; it's amazing. Cheeky free plug for them. We were discussing it earlier, and I did say to him, I personally don't agree with the decision, but looking at it as the way the judges had, the way the criteria was back then, I can't really argue against them picking Razer.
If this was on Fight Court, it'd be a great Fight Court fight to have, by the way.
Definitely.
Mike, if you're listening.
Bring it back.
He has brought it back. They brought it back not long ago.
Yeah, we'll bring in another Fight Court live of this one would be super interesting.
Absolutely. So, in terms of the judging criteria, damage carries the most weight in Robot Wars. Yeah. It had a 4 times multiplier. Behemoth did no damage to Razer.
Nope.
Razer did damage to Behemoth. Razer should win the fight by definition. It was so close, and I think you can. With this, it was such a good fight. Either way, if I had got either way, as a neutral, I'd be happy.
Yeah, we got really good entertainment out of it, if nothing else, obviously. And of course, this fight's 20 years old. We could talk about it till we're blue in the face. But we still got a really good fight out of it.
It was dramatic. It had a lot of good moments in it. Razer, hopping about on the floor spike. It was
everything you'd want in a final. It was close. Both robots gave it their best, and it was a clean fight. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, it was so close as well, and the fact that it went down to the wire and it could have gone either way, I think just makes it just that much more better.
Yeah.
So as a whole, then the Robot Wars, the first World Championship. What do we think, Steve? You made a noise first.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, I had seen the International League before this, so I. As of Series 3 Special goes, I really enjoyed it. I mean, you can say the first round fights, there were some that were kind of but as it went on, you got a lot more. As you whittled the robots down that were really competent and actually could really hold their own weight, you got a lot of really nice fights out of machines. Like, for example, you got a good fight out of Killerhurtz. You got a good fight out of you got a lot of good fights out of 101. You got a lot of good fights out of robots that you normally wouldn't. Behemoth, obviously. You got a lot of good fights out of robots that really just got kind of had a short stick in Series 3. So a lot of robots got a good chance to kind of re-show what they could have done and what they're looking forward to in the future. How they're going to grow toward the future when they come back for Series 4. And I do like the presentation at the end with Mark Thorpe, the grandfather of the sport, who is I don't know if any people are aware, he's fighting what is it? He's got some sort of cancer or something
some kind of illness. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, I know, I could look it up. But he's without him, this sport doesn't exist. So that was a really nice touch at the end. However, I've totally seen that before because they used the same exact clip.
I know they used the same clip.
I'm like, but yeah. I mean, I really enjoy this episode. I mean, I can come back to it and still enjoy it. When I watched it before we ran through it, and just watching it through again while we're remembering the fights again, I still enjoy it. I mean, there's a lot going on that maybe there was a lot of fights that were quick, but overall, I wouldn't give it a score because I don't really give scores, but as a whole, for the time before we had the big arena redesign, I think this was a nice send off for Series 3, if nothing else, because it was just nice. It's just nice.
Yeah, Anderson.
This is what I've been told this to Sam earlier on. This is one that I constantly change my mind on because it's just one time I think it's amazing, and other times I don't think it's very good. And the reason why I think that is simply this. As a tournament, it's very good because you've got some good battles, some good robots in there, etc., etc. As a world championship, it really does not hit the mark at all. Because let's be honest now, all the actual true international competitors all lost in round one, and every single robot that represented in a country other than the UK that won was the ones that was closest to the UK.
it did become an all-English affair pretty quick.
As a world championship, I think personally that they were a bit too bold with this one. Good idea. I think they did it a bit too early. If they'd left it a year, maybe 2 years, they could have done a better job with it.
Because the sport was still growing around the world.
Yeah, it was still new. It was still new, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was too many robots, in my opinion. If they had made it between 8 robots, it would have been fine. But that being said, as far as a tournament is concerned, it's still very enjoyable. Like especially round 2 on, you got some good fights. Like Steve said, you get to see a lot more of some robots that you didn't normally get to see because they fell out due to bad luck, like Behemoth and Razer. You got and Diotior as well. You got to see some interesting new machines from other countries, like for example Depoppesaurus Rex. I do think that was a very good machine for a first build from Belgium, and again very original considering it's the first one. So it's one of those. Yeah, as a world championship, it doesn't quite hit the mark, but as an actual tournament, it's very entertaining.
Yeah. For me, I think it's a case of it's a nice little, it's a good showcase of what some of the machines could do. Obviously, we saw how good Chaos 2 did in Series 3, and a lot of the machines in this, representing the UK, didn't make it out of the heats. I think Chaos 2 is the only one.
Yeah.
So it was good to see, all these machines get another chance to show off what they could do. I mean, particularly Razer and Behemoth, they were so dominant, and obviously, they got rewarded with high rankings in the next series, which everyone was kind of like, why are they so high? Go and check out Planting the Seeds, Series 4, whenever that's out. But for me, it's just it's a good spectacle. There's some great fights in there. There's a few that, Terror Australis and Mortis, I'm looking at you.
Every tournament's going to have a few stinkers, and yes, this was definitely Australia's dark age. It's better, boys. It gets better. Trust me. You'll have a robot that almost goes undefeated in BattleBots. Wow.
The Aussies are certainly right up there now. But
they use dirty underhand tactics to defeat Minotaur, though. I think
I don't think so. Definitely not. But yeah, for me, it's a good fun episode. And I really enjoy it. It's great memories. I don't have the VHS tape anymore, sadly, but it's great memories, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And
I do.
Oh, good for you.
It doesn't work anymore. I got it.
Well, I'm surprised you have the technology to still use it. To be honest with you,
I do.
Here we go.
I've still got an old VHS player.
Oh wow.
We have a judge's decision here for this episode, 2-1.
2-1. Yeah, there you go. Anyway. We obviously don't have a next episode to review, but that is where you, the listeners, commenters, and whatever else come in. We've obviously thought, and we're obviously longing and hoping that BattleBot Season 5 for Discovery can come soon. However, with the current world situation, I don't think that's going to be happening for a good while yet. So I want to know, what do you guys want us to talk about? Which episode do you want us to talk about next? There's literally hundreds of episodes for us to discuss. Probably, I'd say, focus more on the classics because we've done all the modern stuff. To be honest, so that's probably one thing to talk about. But
if anyone requests Heat Series 3, they're going to be murdered.
No, we'll do it. We'll do it if they ask it. Basically, probably the easiest way to do it is, I know there are those out there who prefer to listen to us as just audio only. Some of us who prefer to watch us on YouTube. Leave a YouTube comment, like the ones that you fancy listening to. Try and get a bit of a gauge of, let's see what people want us to talk about. We're pretty easy at the moment. Yeah. So
anybody that gets this far into the episode, you're the true watchers. So really, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. You want us to talk about. Yeah, we'll do anything. We'll do any episode. Just let us know what you think, and we'll crack on with it. It might be a bit more laid back, a bit more fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, hope you've enjoyed us returning to podcasting good as I know I have. This has been a great laugh to talk about.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah. Anyway,
I
guys.
was getting to the point where I was almost missing you.
That's definitely not true. Definitely not true at all. With that said, though, I've been Sam Elliott 64.
I've been a Wars Guru.
And I've been Steve, the American Killjoy.
And the three of us will see you next time for whatever episodes you fancy us talking about next. We'll see you then.